Thank you for staying with us. With the advent of internet, social media, and easy communication tools, the world has become one global village. Personal branding has become an important concept, not just for a few, but many. Thanks to the pandemic, remote and freelance are now more than an option. They are now normal, with people residing in Africa and getting job opportunities and recognitions from other continents. The possibilities are endless, but with stiffer competitors. Now, how can we set ourselves apart for its constant or instant growth with branding? Personal branding is important.
Essential.
Right.
It's crucial, basically. And you know, what actually struck me about personal branding is the fact that we have to be intentional by what we put out there for people to actually know us for what we do. So if you're into, for example, you're into making clothes or whatever, you have to let people know. You have to be intentional about what you put out there for people to know that this is what you represent.
I'm sure our guests would enlighten us more on that.
Absolutely.
But Temi, you already said this conversation, you're passionate about it. So what do you think about our topic before I bring in our guest?
So I agree that personal branding is very important. And this is what I usually say to people. If people don't know what you do, if they don't know what you stand for, if they don't know about your job, how do you expect them to reach out to you? How do you expect them to share opportunities with you? So can you blame them if they don't share opportunities with you because they don't even know that you do such so and such a thing? So it's very important. Personal branding is the way through which people, know what you represent. And I think it's very important, not just for companies. A lot of organizations are very big on branding for themselves. But individuals, and when we say individuals, it's not just the senior executives. Even young people, even young professionals, need to take personal branding very, very importantly. So I'm very excited that we're discussing this topic and we have someone who's going to shed some more light on it.
Okay, so for the purpose of this conversation, we would focus on personal branding, because if you start talking about company and small businesses, that's a broader, serious conversation, right? But please, we want to hear what you have to say. Remember, you can join the conversation, tweet at us using the hashtag #WayShow, or send SMS and WhatsApp to 081-803-84663. The number is right there on your screen. So our guest today is a technology and marketing communications expert of almost 2 decades, a versed published speaker and a public speaker and social commentator. He's currently the group head mobile financial service at InterSwitch and the author of My Crazy Attempts, an everyday guide on how people win. He's a strong believer in communications and technology as critical enablers of every business continual growth and profitability. His name is Lanre Basamta. Hi, Lanre.
Hi, C. Hi, Elsie. Good to be seeing you.
Yeah, good to have you here. How you doing?
I'm good.
So let's talk personal branding.
Lanre isn't saying hello to me. Is it because I'm not in the studio?
Because you are technological.
Hi, Timmy. I apologize.
Virtual.
I mean, you've provided some good background to the conversation. So really, hi.
Yeah. So.
Hello.
I was going to ask what is personal branding, but no, let's not go there because I think they've responded to that, right? So my question would be, what takes a person from being just a person, right, to becoming a brand?
Feels like a trick question, right?
Well,
I would say using Issy's word is intentionality. And I say that because for me, I mean, like you read out when you were reading my profile, it's been almost 20 years of working, but I didn't pay attention to personal branding myself until 2017. And what triggered me was I had a session I had a new boss who was resuming in 2017. And the very first session I had with him, I mean, there was a statement he made. He says, Lanre, do you know that the professional is the brand? I didn't understand. He says, for product, it's easy to understand product branding. Because if you go to ShopRite, and that was the example he used, I mean, you don't see people advertising in ShopRite. What you see is that there are different brands on the shelf, and when you go through the aisle, the brands are calling out to you. So you understand product branding. I said, yes. Okay. He said, corporate branding, organizations not only create brands, they spend quite a lot in promoting the brands. So you are not confused when the organizational brand is calling out to you. I said, but do you know that the professional is the brand? And that if there's no brand to be built, nobody's going to be calling out for you. You know, when he said that, I stepped back. I took some time. I researched it in 2017. I wrote a long article on LinkedIn. It's still there. And I started getting involved in personal branding, particularly not just as a professional, but because I work with a lot of young people. I realized that there's a lot that personal branding can do for professionals in their career, but more importantly for small business owner, as the business owner, and I'm not talking about the business, personal branding makes all the difference. And I'm not even going to start about our situation in Nigeria at the moment, where opportunities are fewer than the people. I mean, there's no better time to be more intentional about personal branding than now, really. So it's intentionality.
So what are the right tools to actually use to promote and build a personal brand to break that barrier?
Maybe the easy way to respond would be, what are not the tools? Because every capability that you have, every tool that you have that can help amplify your uniqueness is possible. Okay, so I mean, the easy ones are, hey, I could say your social media platforms, and it makes sense because they are media platforms. I could say this TV station, I mean, but you know, the core essence of branding are majorly three things. Substance, which is your substance, everything you do. Style, which is your glasses, your hair, as I was looking at. I mean, when you started the show, you started with your shoes. So not just substance, but style. And the third one is reputation. Okay? So reputation can be authentic or not, can be real or not, can be fabricated or genuine, whatever it is. So you'll see that in these three core elements, many things and everything could actually be a tool for you to use. It could be media tools, it could be yourself, it could be your uniqueness, your identity, your height, your smile. It could be everything and anything. You know, anything that distinguishes you to the point where you're not confused with the other person could be a potential tool to use.
So how do you know you're not confused?
Okay. So, like I said, I researched personal branding, right? I realized in 2007, I suspect that the stats would have changed a bit, but let's say 4 years. The stat says that an average person who lived to be 75 years would meet with about 80,000 people in their lifetime. So every one of us. So it is clear that if I'm going to be meeting, or if you're going to be meeting with 80,000 persons, it is almost always guaranteed that you'll be forgotten. Almost always. Now, in personal branding, the whole essence of branding is standing out, is being recognizable enough such that you are not mixed with someone else. And so building all of the identity, reputation, all of the uniqueness that helps you to stand out is what personal branding is. Now you asked, so how do you brand yourself to the point where you don't get forgotten? It's everything together. That's why you wonder why some of the biggest brands in the world still spend a chunk of their budget on advertising. I mean, hey, we all know that Coke is not Zobo.
Exactly.
But Coke won't stop advertising because the core essence of advertising also deals with reputation. You keep building. You keep building. So you don't get to the point where you think you are up there, you are well made, you are all built, you don't need to keep building. You keep building, and that's it. And it's everything together, really.
I'm tempted to say, how do you keep building? But ignore that question. Tammy. Do you have a question? Of course you do.
You're on mute, Tony. Tammy, we can't hear you.
Can you hear? Oh my goodness. Tammy was
yes, I can hear you.
Okay, go ahead.
I was just saying that I was just being excited about not being forgotten in the course of the conversation. So here's my question. You know, some people have the opinion that when it comes to personal branding, it's about people who are lying and people who are exaggerating and who are saying what is not true about themselves. I think that's a misconception about personal branding. So my question is, are there other misconceptions, and what do you say to people who have these misconceptions? Because sometimes those thoughts, those ideas in people's minds is what keeps them from actually exploring, you know, recognizing and building their own brand. So any misconceptions, and what would you even say to, for example, this one that I already mentioned?
Tammy, thanks. I actually think that when you talk about people's understanding of what personal branding is, particularly in the context of people telling lies or not, you understand that maybe they don't really understand. So in communication, I mean, the fundamentals, and you guys are pros, right? Perhaps more pro than I am. in communication, we say perception is reality. It's the same. In personal branding, reputation is reality. Until somebody rightly or wrongly experiences your brand, all that the person has is reputation. And so, if you intentionally build reputation, people buy into it. It's not like you are lying or you're telling the truth. It's just the way of the world. Think about it. A lot of the assumptions we've made, okay, I've given you the clue now. A lot of the truth in our heads, they're just opinions and assumptions. A lot of them, okay? A lot of the things we hold dear, we hold true, they're just our opinions and assumptions. And it's the same. That's why people spend billions on advertising, because everybody knows that, I mean, you get a lot of your truth or your sense of truth from the things you hear. Just like before the show started, or before my segment of the show started, you were talking about what you learned in the news. I mean, today we all believe that President Buhari is our president because, I mean, that was broadcasted on air. I'm not sure if any one of us on this table, including Temi, was there when it was inaugurated. So the truth is, the way we take in information as humans is oftentimes like that. So if you understand, and it's not a function of I'm lying or I'm saying the truth, if you understand that this is the way humans process information, then you understand that you're actually in control of your destiny, at least reasonably. It means that you can build what you want people to see, you can sell what you want people to buy, you can put out there information about yourself that you want people to know. And over time, they believe it. It's just the way of the world. I mean, okay, whether you accept it or not, is the fundamental of communication.
I think a better Buhari example would be that many people think that he does not care about the country, and which is basically the communication they put out in terms of body language and what they put out there, and how he's not just saying anything.
Yes, spot on. And so you may be surprised that this guy is literally not sleeping at night.
Yeah.
Just for worry. But who cares now? Who cares now?
We don't care because we're not seeing it.
Exactly.
We don't understand it.
Exactly.
So, when it comes to personal branding, some people will say, like you said, social media. It's like the first thing that comes to mind and all that. However, I think that it has changed over the years. And personal branding is becoming something that you also have to evolve with, so you don't get lost in the idea that you have. But my question would be, who should care about personal branding? Because I'll tell you, I don't care, this is not my business. So who should care about it?
I would have said everyone, but clearly not everyone will. So I would say everyone who has some stake or something to lose.
Okay.
I would have said everyone, but clearly not everyone will be concerned. But everyone who has a stake or something to lose. And what do I mean by that? I would say somebody who has a stake towards building a career. I mean, it's inevitable. You know why? I don't even like using Nigeria, but Nigeria is perhaps the best example. 20 years ago, there were no jobs. 10 years ago, it was bad. Today, only God knows. So imagine that you used to have graduates, young Nigerians graduate from university, there were no jobs. Today, you have tons and tons of them and less of the job. I mean, what's it called now? Inflation is at 19%. Our economy is shrunken. Just about December, when, what's it called, recession. Things are much worse today than ever. So if you're ever going to get a job and ascend the ladder of your career and to make the best of it, you've got to stand out. I mean, if you need to be preached onto, I wish I could. But it's quite clearly that you need personal branding to stand out. Because today, if you think you have a degree, there are many degrees out there. In fact, many degrees from American, European universities. If you think you've got experience, come and see experience in the market. If you think you are pretty or you're nice, there are tons of prettier people. If you think you speak with beautiful accent, don't you listen to radio? There are tons and tons of accent out there. So what will distinguish you is not a function of your capabilities, qualifications, experience, network, people you know. Everybody knows people. So the only way you are going to be distinguished in a rapidly evolving, very difficult market where opportunities are fewer, of course, is personal branding. But that's on one side. Another part would be people who are business people. And I say that particularly for small business owners like sole proprietorships. For sole proprietorship, you might be creating value, but you're not necessarily selling that value. What people buy into is the person and personality of the sole proprietor. That's why they patronize, because what a sole proprietorship is essentially a small business that many people can replicate. The barrier of entry is very low, the opportunities are not too big, and so anybody can replicate. I mean, if you have making meat pies at the junction, for example, you would wonder many people could bake better than you do.
Yeah, which
if
is
you,
why...
If you make the best cakes,
Yeah.
you probably will find 15 other people. So what would get people to continuously keep buying from you, even though there are 10 other better cakes, is personal branding. So everyone who has a stake or who has something to lose, this is desperate. I mean, when you started, you were talking about it's essential, it's fundamental, it's everything.
Okay. And I was going to say, which is why even new companies, like tech startups and all, are very particular about the person. Yes, they have co-founders, but they're particular about the person who represents the brand in public eye. The person who, when you call this brand, the name comes up, because they want to be able to maintain a certain perception and brand as well. But let's go on a very quick break, and when we come back, we'll definitely carry on this conversation.